As business owners, entrepreneurs, family men, it's difficult for us to find the time to put together projects like these. Even though it's something we really want to do, unfortunately, taking care of the things we have to take care of comes first. However, because of viewer support for people like you, we're able to continue doing this. Please consider joining our Patreon and supporting the Burn and Return podcast. You're listening to Burn and Return, a weekly 1-hour podcast covering news from the agricultural and turfgrass industries.
When you hear the DJ scratch, you know what it means. That means it is time for another episode of the show we all love, known as Thirsty Thursday. Welcome aboard the Soul Train. For the next hour or so, we are going to be bringing you the hottest news of the green industry.
Matt, this is Burn and Return.
What did I say?
You said Thirsty Thursday.
You got to be kidding me. Did I really?
Yeah.
I think you did.
That is a major weird slip because I did not have Thirsty Thursday on my mind, so I'm not even sure why I said that. It is Burn and Return, as a matter of fact. My name is Matt Martin, and alongside of me here we have Mr. Ray Ito and Ryan DeMay. Gentlemen, slug trails abound. How the hell has your weekend been?
So far, it's been quiet.
And
So
for
far, it's been
that,
great.
we can count our blessings because Ray did not kill a man with a trident today. Nor did he last week, nor has he ever. But Ray and I are in the same vein that, you know, sometimes, you just stranger things have kind of happened there. Right. So I went camping this weekend, and we were out at the Foshi Park campground, something or another like that. Little waterfront property off Watts Bar Lake. And I'll tell you what was interesting is I've never seen this at a campground before. It had a warning post there that said, "In the event of nuclear emergencies, follow these steps." In the event of a nuclear emergency, follow these steps. So apparently, there is a Watts Bar nuclear plant within 10 miles of this, and basically, it had a list of things to do. Like number one was listen for the alarm. Don't be alarmed if it's on this day at noon, which is Friday at noon, because that's just a test. And number three was GTFO, and don't turn around, kind of sort of thing. Follow evacuation routes to get out. I was like, man, that is that's a pretty short list of what to do in a nuclear emergency there. Just go.
Jeez. Just
go?
Just get out. Although, having said that, Matt, I can't worry about shit like that because my neighborhood is literally about 5 minutes from where all the nuclear subs are.
Yeah. I mean, it is what it is. And I understand that probably for some sort of bizarre legal purpose, they have to have that listed, right? Like, who's going to survive that and be like, you know what? They didn't have appropriate, they did not have appropriate signage. I was not prepared on what to do in this event, and therefore we're going to sue on that grounds. Because pretty much everybody that's going to be within the fallout area is going to, sorry, you're probably not going to make it. Rest in peace. Rest in peace. That is a great question there. J Pink said, would Jesse Bousquet take that kind of case? And the reality is I don't think there's anything Jesse Bousquet would not at least consider, especially if it's federal like that. Because for those of you that don't know, Jesse Bousquet is not afraid of representing the degenerates, and he's not afraid of representing them against the feds either. Because you know why? He's a man of the people, by the people, and we need more men like him on the face of this planet. Listen, this is not This is not a paid advertisement here. We just appreciate the value that Jesse Bousquet brings to the community because, hey, look, I'm not going to pretend like, I'm a good person. I'm not. And, I need someone in my corner that could defend me in the event I need to be defended. You know what I mean? I try not to get caught. Look, I'm a horrific human being, but I do a fairly good job of not getting caught. You know what I mean? But if I did, I know where I can lean. But you know who is not a horrific human being? And that's why we have him on the show, Ryan. I'm glad you're here, man. Our voice of reason.
I'm glad I'm here.
Our moral barometer.
We're recording this on Mother's Day, and first of all, happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there that listen to us. I know
Mother's Day.
I know they're numerous, and they come from several different continents and everything like that. My other comment on the Mother's Day piece is I hope that all of our friends that have a strong affiliation to probably one of the most profound and prolific Mother's Day restaurants, the Olive Garden, right, are very happy and can spend the day there. So Ray, Timmy Bluegrass, if you enjoyed a coconut shrimp appetizer today, glad for you. And Aldo, I hope you get to go out later on tonight and get your grease trap cleared out back by the dumpsters.
Aldo, check out Fresh Fry, freshfry.me. It's a real quick oil filter pod that you can just drop in, let the heat from convection take care of it, and that convection will clean that oil right out, and you'll be ready for round 2 in no time.
I was describing a much more manually driven process, but okay.
Hey, look, the time savers here. I'm interested in helping you save time and money, especially when it comes to being back in action with coconut shrimp of all flavors. And time is money in that kind of regard.
Everybody's grease trap has a different refractory period, so buyer beware.
Some people need Cabergoline. Other people can rely on Fresh Fry, freshfry.me. Also, not a paid sponsor, by the way. That is, isn't Cabergoline used to decrease refractory periods? I don't know what I'm talking about anymore. Gentlemen, let's kick off the headlines. Ray was going to chime in there. Yes, Matt, it is.
No. Actually, no. It's not for that.
J-Paint, we stomped all over that headline and no one cares.
That's okay.
I promise you. Everyone listening right now is like, you know what? I'd probably rather hear them talk than that stupid ass intro anyway. The first article we're going to be talking about here, boys, is I think this could potentially, there are some potentially good outcomes that could come from it. And this is the effect on ecosystems of reduced pesticide use. A new project led by Nreyes will study how living organisms respond to reduced pesticide use. Pesticides affect the health of agricultural soils and waterways, but how do the living organisms in our ecosystems react if we reduce the use of these contaminants? Professor Valérie Langlois from the Institut National de la Recherche Scientifique is seeking the answer to this question. Her team just received nearly $1.3 million in funding from Fonds de Recherche de Québec, Nature et Technologie, Ministère de l'Agriculture. I'm sorry. I don't know why I keep trying to pretend like I speak French. I can't.
I think it's the Funds of Research of Quebec and the Ministry of Agriculture in Quebec.
Oh, is that what that says?
Pretty much.
Yes.
Pretty much. I'm paraphrasing here. Okay.
There was like, you know how sometimes you see an E and then sometimes you see an E with like a tick mark on top of it. Well, not only did I see an E with a tick mark on top of it, in two different words, they were going 2 different directions, and it really overwhelmed me.
I can tell you,
exactly
listen,
sure how to proceed. It was like a monopoly.
It's been a long time. I passed my French final. It was not written at all. It was all oral, though. So that's all I can say about that.
I'm pretty sure you passed.
Need Cabergoline to pass that either. The knowledge which up to now has been incomplete or lacking for pesticide mixtures is key to supporting and justifying the transition to sustainable, environmentally friendly farming. This is the ecotoxic genomic expert Valérie Langlois. We need to clarify. We need to clearly show that reducing pesticide use has significant benefits for ecosystem, soil, and water, and limited effect on agricultural yield. So, and yeah, I'm going to stop right here. There's a lot more to this article, but what I think is interesting about here is I love how they're starting this. And the whole start of this is that we need to clearly show that if we reduce pesticide use, we have a statistically significant benefit to an ecosystem. They're not coming at this from the standpoint that uh, um, all pesticides are bad. Pesticides should not be included in any shape, form, or fashion. It's let's provide some sort of measurable benefit that if we do reduce, what does that look like? How can we quantify that? And then how can we put that into practical meanings, right? Because it goes on to say that, are we, if we do these types of things, are we getting the types of results that we need? Are we still able to maintain yield? Are we still doing things that we need to do, like in inhibiting or slowing at least the development of resistance. So there's a lot of potential that I see coming out of this that is applicable across a wide variety of research. Now, this is reduced pesticide use, and I'm sure what they're going to take into account here is going to be like, pesticide use on tillage, pesticide use on no tillage, because obviously those are going to be wildly different types of results you see there, because with tillage, you could pretty much guarantee a massively amount of increase in runoff and erosion, right? And so I think this is important work, and that's why I'm actually excited this is going on. Gentlemen, is there anything about this that I'm kind of glossing over here that you see that is a benefit or a negative, for that matter?
It's hard to say without understanding how the experiments are going to be set up, but it sounds like they want to do it in a controlled environment first and then take it out into the field and test, what the results are right against that. So that's good to see. I think probably the most important thing here is that it's about as common sense of an approach as we've seen, right? With respect to Canada's probably one of the more progressive countries in North America, certainly, and definitely the world, in terms of limiting or reducing overall pesticide usage, both in cropping systems, turf, like all of it, right? So it's at least encouraging to see that they're funding research, right? They're not just going full Sri Lanka and saying, well, I hope this whole organic farming thing works out. Like, they're at least saying, okay, what are the levers we need to pull? Because, Ray, as you well know, it's an input equals output type of scenario, right? So every time we change an input, the output could be affected. So it ought to be good to find out what might happen when we do this under live fire conditions.
Yes, I mean, I like to see studies like this where hopefully objectively, all of this gets teased out and laid out for everybody to see. And hopefully without outside influence or how shall I say, designing the study to demonstrate a desired result. I mean, that's all I can hope for.
I agree 100%. And that is a fear I had, that when I saw the headline, that was immediately the first thing that went through my head. And, but I have high hopes, and I think this also kind of points to one of those aha moments that nobody really seems to talk about, that needs to be talked about, is that a lot of these restrictions on pesticide use are implemented, and then you're going back behind after the fact to figure out what the repercussions are. Is there an environmental benefit? Is there an impact to yield? What are the long-term consequences of this, good and bad, kind of thing, right? So it's kind of one of those act first and then figure out what we effed up in the background, kind of sort of thing. And I think that takes us right into our next topic here, which is the Ukraine crisis reveals the folly of organic farming. Now, I want to be transparent here that this is an opinion piece from the Wall Street Journal. And this is from Bjorn Lomberg, who is a pretty interesting guy. He considers himself an environmentalist, but an environmentalist skeptic. And so he kind of looks at things and talks about the things that people don't like to talk about when it comes to environmentalism. So particularly here, he highlights a lot of the hypocrisy that has taken place, and that has caused a major malfunction in the global economic and food availability scale. The energy crisis caused by the war in Ukraine disabused many politicians of the notion that the world could make a swift transition to green energy powered by solar, wind, and wishful thinking. As food prices skyrocket and the conflict threatens a global food crisis, we need to face another unpopular reality. Organic farming is ineffective, land hungry, and very expensive, and it would leave billions hungry if it were embraced worldwide. For years, politicians and the chattering classes have argued that organic farming is a responsible way to feed the world. The European Union pushed last year for members roughly to triple organic farming by 2030. Influential nonprofits have long promoted organic farming to developing nations, causing fragile countries like Sri Lanka to invest in such methods. In the West, many consumers have been won over. About half of the population of Germany believes that organic farming can fight global hunger. That is almost funny if it didn't mean that people were dying in the process. The rise in food prices, buoyed by increased fertilizer, energy, and transport costs amid the conflict in Ukraine, has exposed inherent flaws in the argument for organic farming, because organic agriculture shirks many of the scientific advancements that have allowed farmers to increase crop yields. It's inherently less efficient than conventional farming. Research has conclusively shown that organic farming produces less food per acre than conventional agriculture. Moreover, organic farming rotates fields in and out of use more often than conventional farming, which can rely on synthetic fertilizer and pesticides to maintain fertility and keep away pests. Taking this and a lower production in a given field into account, organic farming produces between 29 and 44% less food than conventional methods. It therefore requires as much as 78% more land than conventional agriculture, and the food produced costs 50% more, all while generating no measurable increase in human health or animal welfare. And so then it goes on to give way more details about how that exactly takes place, and then, points the finger back at Sri Lanka again. And but I think what's most important on here is, the result will be devastation. In the event that this is pushed through and that it becomes the standard, the result will be devastation. Rising fertilizer prices could decrease rice yields by 10% in the next season, leading to a drop in food production equivalent to what could feed 500 million people. Policymakers and nonprofits must urgently focus on ways to produce more food for the world's poorest at less cost. Genetic engineering, better pest management, and more irrigation would go a long way towards increasing yields. Ramping up the production of artificial fertilizer, as well as considering removing regulation that makes its fossil fuel inputs more expensive, will also help. These simple, common sense approaches can curb price hikes, avoid hunger, and even help the environment. Agriculture already uses 40% of the ice-free land on Earth. Increasing its efficiency will allow us to keep more land wild and natural. It's time to let go of this self-indulgent obsession with organics and focus on scientific and effective approaches that can feed the planet. So this is a pretty hard line, opposite to what we hear a lot about organic farming. But, in one of those instances, it's like, well, somebody needed to say it. Even if this is, extremism breeds extremism, right? It's the rubber band effect. If you pull the rubber band one far two way, when you let it go, it's going to swing back the other way, right? And I think that's a lot of what you're seeing here, but there's also an overwhelming significant amount of truth to this as well. Now, that's not to say that all of these things can't be explored in parallel paths, but I kind of feel like up to this point, we have been exploring these in parallel paths, right? The market has seen a greater demand for organic farming, and I think a lot of that is, like he said, the nonprofits that continue to push this. And now you have organic food producers like Stony Bridge or Stonyland or whoever it is. I can't. Stonyfield. That is all in DC lobbying the hell out of what they do differently that would make the world better. But what they're not highlighting is exactly what's been highlighted here. And it's the reality that if we lost 10% of rice yields, that we're no longer feeding rice to 500 million people, which is a major, major issue. 500 million people. And think about how many countries there are out there that rely on rice for sustenance, right? As a major part of their calorie consumption. That could be huge and catastrophic. And again, in my opinion, if not the worst way to kill a population is to starve them to death, right? And, Ryan, you pulled it out last week that, people will die. And this is, I think, the ultimate case right here for why we should continue in the direction we're going with modern agriculture and continuing to evolve modern agriculture to be more efficient with land. So we are not watching people die, because that is, that's against everything that it means to be a human, is to watch people die. So, I don't know, boys, talk to me here. Is this a case of extremism, or is this a case of common sense? Where are we out on the spectrum here with Bjorn?
I think it's just putting out the issues that also need to be talked about, right? With this ideology, right? So, as we've said on here before, if you subscribe at the fringes of any ideology, it kind of, I think, limits or erodes your credibility. So the answer lies probably somewhere in the middle. And so it's good to see that somebody's putting this out there. I just, again, hopefully with some of the research that comes out of Canada there, other things like that, I think the most important thing is just a path, right? Like, where are we going? What is the low-hanging fruit, and how can you pick this stuff off and continue to level up, what we would consider to be conventional agriculture into being, more efficient, right? And I think we're going to see that. I think that if there's any bright side to all of this, of what's going on right now, is that, however you feel about it, whatever, but, just like with the COVID vaccine, where people came together and we had, companies in the free market basically at warp speed putting something together that never been done before. I think this will advance, right, some of the technology that's been out there for a while. Looking on the sidelines, we talked last week about, some of the, the microbes. What am I thinking of? Anyway, inoculants.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of that stuff, right, that I think is going to fast forward big time in the free market, and maybe that helps us, maybe it doesn't, but it's definitely happening at a much higher velocity. It's happening at a much higher velocity because it has to now. Like, we have no choice.
Absolutely.
So,
however, what this to me is, his position is pretty moderate, actually. I think he's pretty moderate in that he's just laying out certain realities of this hardline organic approach, where what I see being exposed is where ideology and politics has overruled actual science, because nobody previously has said, for example, you can be organic. However, this is how you have to trade off. Your yields are lower. And he brought up something very important. Your area that you need to have in production can be a lot higher for organic versus conventional agriculture, because the fact of the matter is that, do you all understand the concept of field rotation in organic agriculture?
Mm-hmm. Explain it to
and
our
what that means.
listeners.
Okay, what that means, for example, is, imagine you have a field that is used to grow one crop for one season. The next year, that field must be taken out of production. It either has to be fallowed or put in a cover crop, or put into yet another crop for which there may or may not be a demand for, or use for that crop. So this all goes back to my principle of not doing a lot of wasted work, not wasting anything. And in this case, in addition to consuming a lot of land, you're also consuming a lot of money doing all of this extra work.
And fuel
and for all this extra, and for all this extra work, how many more people are you able to feed? How many more people are you able to feed? Because
less.
A lot less. Exactly, Matt. Because you see, I look at the kind of people that are pushing organic only, and those people, they strike me as people that have never gone through poverty. They've never had to miss meals, and they've never had to do without. I mean, they all seem to me like they live lives of relative luxury. Because, by the way, Matt, I know what it's like for cupboards and refrigerators to be bare or nearly bare. Okay, I know what that's like. And for a lot of these activists and organic people to sit up there and say, you have to be organic, and sorry, yields are less, variety is less, because the other facet or tenet of this organic movement will mean that, did you know that there are going to be large areas of the world that, under the principles of the organic lifestyle, basically need to be depopulated? Like, for example, I will have to definitely get out of Hawaii because I don't belong here, for example. People living in California, most of them will have to get out of there too because they don't belong there.
It creates an interesting situation, and I hope it's something that common sense can prevail, especially here at home, because but I think from a humanitarian standpoint, we're all humans at the end of the day, and we should pay attention. We should sympathize, and if we have experience in this space, empathize with these people that are going to have to go through this, because it's a very real misfortune, and unfortunately, it's a bad thing. In the same vein as nothing we have talked about thus far, but hate is abound and aplenty this week. This is from the AP, and I would say that this is another opinion piece here. And this is from Julia Rubin, and she says America's love affair with the lawn is getting messy. Leanne Ferrara is transforming her small suburban yard from grass bordered by a few shrubs into an anti-lawn, a patchwork of flower beds, vegetables, and fruit trees. It doesn't happen all at once. We started smothering small sections of the lawn with cardboard and mulch, and then planting them. And by now, the front yard is probably 3/4 planting beds. Every year we do more. Her perennials and native plants require less upkeep and water than turfgrass does, and she doesn't need herbicides or pesticides. She's not aiming for emerald perfection. For generations, the lawn, that neat green weedless carpeted grass, has dominated American yards. It still does, but a surge of gardeners, landscapers, and homeowners worried about the environment now see it as anachronism. How do you pronounce that? See it as an anachronism, even a threat.
Anachronism. Yeah.
Like Ferrara, they're chipping away at it. America is unique in its fixation on the monoculture lawn. That's not true. Our English inheritance is our own little tidy green space. Now, drought, crashing insect populations, and other environmental problems are highlighting in different ways in different places the need for more kinds of plants in spaces large and small. The more you can make your little piece that you're a steward of go with nature's flow, the better off everyone is. And it goes on and on and on about you're a crazy person. I'm not. What I'm doing is a benefit. What you're doing is not. And here's the reality of the situation is that I do wholeheartedly believe that when we talk about landscapes in people's yards, we should be looking at planting more native plants. I think native plant landscaping should be at the forefront of what's going on. The problem is you go into a nursery right now. How difficult is it to find natives there? Right, you typically have to go to a specialty, which is bizarre. You have to go to a specialty nursery to find native plants, and I think that is unfortunate and bizarre. But at the same time, that does not mean that the lawn should be 100% done away with in favor of going 100% native plants with every available square footage that you have. When you're talking about diverse ecosystems, a lawn is going to provide another set of living area for the ecosystem. And at the same time, when it comes to filtration, turfgrass is one of our great filters. When it comes to cooling effects, so there are major environmental benefits that come with having grass. In fact, if we want to talk about probably the single-handedly most important environmental impact would be the sequestration rate of CO2, especially if we're growing C4 plants. Am I right? So our warm season guys that are growing Bermuda and Zoysia, good for you guys because y'all are sequestering carbon at a much more aggressive rate. Now, that's not to say that some people don't have longer growing season with cool season grass, and they might catch up. The math may work out there in the end. So, again, when we're talking about the rubber band effect, I think this is the rubber band effect in maybe not so much our article here by Bjorn being the rubber band effect, and this being a true example of the rubber band effect, right? Where it's not like you can't have a little bit of grass. The objective here is to have no grass whatsoever. And in fact, what do they call it here? They now call it an anti-lawn. So if you're having flower beds and vegetables and fruit trees in your yards, that is now called the anti-lawn. Meanwhile, there are hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of other people in the world that have grass areas, flower beds, vegetables, and fruit trees. Hello. Who is our good friend Turf Therapy that manages to put a lot of that shit together in a single growing space? That's right.
Yeah.
Robert Palmer gets the damn thing done. And he draws a whole community of people into that space of being able to do that. And I think that's a wonderful thing. And I love that. That is not to say that I think it's astronomical to point at it and be like, that the only way is to get rid of your grass and do this. I think it's stupid. Pisses me off.
Well, I just still go back to, okay, you get rid of the maintained grass areas, all right? How much do you all like snakes, scorpions, centipedes, and spiders, and ticks? How much do you all like that kind of stuff?
Well, they don't like red meat, so they're not worried about getting bit by the tick and never being able to eat red meat again. Isn't that a tick thing? Did I make that up?
Yeah.
My dream.
No, that is the reaction to a certain kind of a tick bite.
On drugs.
But even beyond that, Matt, I still see the value of maintained grass to keep living areas relatively safe, because I want to know how many of these organic advocates would still be okay if, for example, they had a spider or a centipede in their shoe.
I mean, Ray, we know the answer to this, and they would probably freak out, and then they would put a post on Facebook about it and how terrible it was that they had to experience that, and or they would be like, "Oh my God, I enjoyed it. Look at this beautiful spider I found in my shoe today," and meanwhile, their flesh is rotting off their foot because the brown recluse has the type of venom that eats flesh. DeMay, I'm trying to play middle of the road here and pretend like the truth is somewhere in the center, but I'm not doing a very good job at it. Could you maybe clean up my BS here, because I'm sounding like a babbling brook?
We're all going to be zealots for turfgrass, right? There's just it is the way that we are, what we believe in. So yeah, you're going to get a slanted opinion by listening to this, no matter who it is. So, the only things I would say is that we're still always going to need managed turf grass. I think it's fine that there are areas of the country that need to get rid of lawns for a certain reason or another, whether it be water use, right, or other reasons.
Sure.
I'm saying, like, there are places, what's a weed, right? A plant at a place. And sometimes turf is not the right plant for that place. That being said,
I get 50 inches of rain a year. Is it a sin for me to grow grass?
No.
No.
It's literally the most economical and environmentally conscious ground cover that you can possibly have, right?
Hey.
That's it. Now, you're going to say that, well, we need to have prairie grasses and meadow grasses and things like that. And there's a certain, just what Ray said, there's a certain, what do you want to call them, quality of life issues, right, that go into that, right? So
hey, son, go ride your bike in the backyard through the forage.
And boy, watch out for snakes.
If you get bit, don't call me, you sissy.
That's watch out for, by the way. Yeah, watch out for snakes, or else I also, am the advocate for grass in the right place. Okay, I believe in that too. I mean, because for example, you know me and how I don't like grass on steep grades. A lawn doesn't belong on a 45-degree grade.
DeMay, I want to throw the football in the backyard with my son, but I planted broom sedge back there, and it's approximately 28 tall. I'm having trouble getting from one end of my half-acre backyard to the other half end of the half-acre backyard.
Well, you know what? Here's the thing: is you make them go out there and play in shorts with no socks and no shoes, and then you douse them in rubbing alcohol after to toughen them up for football tryouts. That's what you do.
See, that is actually one way to make a man out of a boy. And you know who's going to make a man out of a boy tonight? That's going to be our Joe Knows Turf segment. Gentlemen, let's check this out. Joe
Knows Turf. Hi, I'm Joe.
Effortless.
I'm gonna give you a bunch of accurate turf facts today because Joe knows turf.
That's right. Joe does know turf. And DeMay, how about you kick us off here? Let's learn what Joe knows today.
Well, okay. Listen, I'm going to preface this by giving our normal disclaimer that this is in no way, shape, or form personal. This is to take what is being put out there into the wide open world. And, hey, I'm saying what I believe.
I was just kidding. I was being facetious.
Okay. So,
Hyperbole.
That being said, do not get butthurt. All we're trying to do is put a spin on it that provides the proper context, right? Because I think a lot of times when people are giving advice, right, and we try not to be guilty of it, but we're only a product of our own experiences, and I get that, right? You got to meet people where they are. So, a lot of times the advice comes out, and it's literally generated from one person's lawn that they've only had experience with, and they can't project that out into being, okay, hey, somebody else's situation, location, geography, grass type, soil type, their general knowledge, their equipment, whatever, might be just a tad bit different. And you got to take all that into account when you make statements. And listen, this is to help everybody. Hey, listen, Ray, I'm not here to make you feel good. I'm here to help you get good. And sometimes that's going to hurt. So
exactly.
Without further ado, this one was sent in to us just, I think, this morning, actually.
Yeah.
So this was sent in and asked to say, hey, what do you guys think about this? And are there some statements made here that you could add some context to? And so that's what we're going to try to provide here. And we're going to do it through our Lord and Savior, Joe, the Lawn Warrior. So let's launch this.
Environmentally responsible in my lawn? Well, I'm just not throwing every chemical out there on it when something bad goes wrong.
Pause.
I like this guy's accent. He sounds like me.
All right, so this is the title of this is "You Don't Need These 3 Products to Have a Healthy Green Grass: Basic Lawn Care Tips on a Budget." Fantastic video title. I'm already enthralled because I'd like to hear what this gentleman has to say. The opening statement there, very good. That's good to hear because I would agree that that's a huge problem, right? That takes place. That people see something that goes wrong and immediately, what do I need to spray, spread, or do to fix this? And Ray, as you've learned over a period of time, right? A lot of times that's just wait and see and or figure out what the hell you actually have going on before you do anything.
Yeah.
So let's
find
listen
out
here and see what.
Last video, rarely use any herbicides aside from my pre-emergent. Post-emergent herbicides, hardly use them at all. Okay, so that leads us into 3 products that I do not use on my lawn no matter what. And the first one that I got hit with after last week's video is, well, what about fungicides? Do you try to prevent them? Do you cure them after they set in place? And the answer to both of those questions is no. I do nothing about them. I have used a fungicide one time as an experiment to see if I could help control my spring dead spot. So I applied that in the fall to limit damage in the spring. Didn't really do a whole lot despite thinking it did. So I will likely never do that again. And I know this topic is a little bit easier for me to talk about because I had Bermuda grass and it grows by rhizomes and stolons, and it grows so quickly that it repairs
Oh
itself
my goodness.
so fast. So if you don't have a warm season grass that grows as quickly as this Bermuda does, then maybe a lot of this won't apply to you. I'm just telling you about how I approach fungus in the lawn. Typically, I will deal with dollar spot or brown patch or the spring dead spot, just like some of you possibly have in the past. And usually that will arise from too much moisture or too much rain. And my solution to taking care of them is just let those environmental conditions, the rain and the moisture, be eliminated from the lawn. If that means letting it dry out after all the rain has passed, even to a point where it's really dry. And then I just pick back up on my cultural practices of regular mowing.
Pause. Now, first, I want to highlight we're not always here to give you the bad, right? There's some good here. What he said there about fungicides, absolutely true. You don't need to use them. And a lot of times, one of the best things you can do is dry that stuff down. Now, J Pink, I'd like you to roll back here for me to just before 2 minutes, about 1 minute, 58 seconds.
That I use and think I need, and everybody said, well, what about this and what about that? So I want to address one thing first. I hear a lot from the soil test purists that if you're not doing a soil test, then you are potentially harming the environment by throwing too much on your lawn, particularly phosphorus in fertilizers. Well, here's how I respond to that. Fertilizer and phosphorus is not the only thing in lawn care hurting our environment. There are so many other things doing just as much or possibly more damage. So how am I environmentally responsible in my lawn? Well, I'm just not throwing every chemical out there on it.
Pause.
Pause.
I'm not sure that I agree at all with anything that was just said there.
No, it just
No.
where I was like, hey,
you
I
can't
kind of
say
like old
that.
guy here. I went back and I was like, oh, buddy.
You
Buddy.
can't say that to start, and I didn't want to start with that. I wanted to show that, hey, like the guy actually, he's trying to put some good information out there, and there is some good information out there. However,
He has a point.
to
He has a point.
thumb your nose and say, well, hey, I don't really care what I put down because, well, I don't need those stinking soil tests because I know better than the soil test. And, we're not going to go into it right now. If you do watch the other video that he references in this, and I don't think we went through that clip where he's talking about it, but he did a video where he talked about the 4 products that he does like to use, and he is applying phosphorus with almost every app in this program. So again, that might work here, but if you're in Michigan and you have high P soils, or if you're in another location that has a phosphorus ban or something else, again, it's just some nuance there. I understand that this guy can't provide all of that kind of clarification in one 8-minute video. It's impossible. I agree with that. But
it's a 43-minute video,
like
but
this-
it's worth the effort, in my opinion. If anybody's ever
All right.
watched a grass factor video, knows that it what starts as a 10-minute idea turns into a 45-minute meta-analysis because you have to cover all your bases.
All right, so there's one more. We'll do about 5 minutes and 25 seconds.
That is an insecticide or pesticide, whatever you want to call it. I
Oh,
have
Lord
never
have mercy.
used something to kill
DeMay!
pests in the lawn or to prevent them.
Pause. Can we just real quick that there is a hierarchy of the sides, right? And at the top of the food chain is pesticide. Pesticide encompasses, it is all encompassing of fungicides, rodenticides, nematicides, herbicides. They all fall, insecticides, they all fall under pesticide. There is
If you're trying to kill a slug, it's also molluscicide too.
molluscicide, a mollusk. That's right. All of these fall under the umbrella term pesticide. Can we please stop calling insecticides pesticides as if they're synonymous with one another? all insecticides are pesticides. Not all pesticides are insecticides. This is basic 101 level shit here. Can we just fix that one thing? Go ahead.
Have I dealt with a pest problem? Absolutely. Last summer, I dealt with a major pest problem when armyworms completely destroyed my lawn. I know why that happened too, because I completely got away from the cultural practices that we just mentioned. Life got
Bullshit.
busy, new job,
Bullshit.
house being built, and I didn't do anything in the lawn for quite some time.
Lie.
Properly manicured, properly cared for lawn, those cultural practices deter pests from wanting to come into your lawn in the first place. Just like they deter fungus from setting in. So, if you're taking care of the lawn and giving it everything...
Sir, doo-doo is falling out of your mouth right now.
Well,
Doo-doo is falling out of your mouth.
I'm going to be the voice of reason. Maybe he's oversimplifying. I don't know. I don't know the guy's motives. I'm just going to say this, is that the reason that it wasn't that you were too busy, it wasn't that, you did something wrong. It's literally that you didn't prevent
They showed up
with a chemical, and the life cycle of the pest is such that they were going to come in there, and so again, this is a learning exercise. That's the way I view this. I don't know. We'll play that for a few more seconds here. I want to see. I can't remember if he said something else here.
Your lawn will not become desirable for those pests to set up shop in particular the armyworms like I dealt with last year.
That's
and
not
if
true.
you can kind of look for the warning signs, I noticed the warning signs up underneath my sunshade awnings. I started seeing the eggs showing up, and I would see them on my grill cover as well. If you notice those, you know a problem might be coming. So if you are someone that wants to treat, you can go ahead and treat then to prevent them or to kill them if they've already started taking care of their damage. But for me, I just let nature run its course, just like with the fungus. And if I can keep that soil moist, the lawn mowed, and everything else working the way it should, then those pests should not find a comfy place in my lawn, and they'll be taken care of before I know it. Because every other summer before, I noticed those same warning signs in advance, but I was so persistent and so consistent with my cultural practice.
Got it. Okay. Is there going to be any more enlightening moments here? Look, here's the reality of the situation is that, and I'm a big fan. If I have Bermuda grass, do you have to run out there and treat for it? No, absolutely not. I've dealt with armyworms long enough living in the South that if you don't treat for it and they come through at a pretty decent time, you're going to be all right. If you've got tall fescue, you got Kentucky bluegrass, you got perennial ryegrass, and they come eating, chances are you're going to have to do some pretty significant seeding to get all that to come back to equilibrium, right? But in a Bermuda grass, you're much more forgiving. Now, I think a major thing that he left over here and should have been reiterated was the fact that he has Bermuda grass, and this works for him and him alone. And so he can get away with it. But as far as the three things you don't need in your lawn, it doesn't necessarily always align apples to apples. And again, back to this phosphorus thing, to pretend like phosphorus is not an issue is selling it short, because that is why all eyes are on agriculture and lawn care right now. It's not just the chemical component, it is also the phosphorus component. And so is as important as ever to be that whatever decision you make out in, I'll give you an example. My dad taught me one time, and my dad's an engineer, and he said, if anyone ever questions your decision, you show them the data, you kick their ass with the data. Same thing. So if you are ever questioned about your application decision, whether that be an insecticide, a pesticide, or fertility, you can kick their ass with the data, and that is part of the benefit of having a metric like a soil test. So thanks, Budget Lawns. Thank you, DeMay, for bringing that to our attention, and may you continue along in your lawn care quest a little bit more astute than just San Francisco Gate articles and whatever you found on GeoCities in 2002. Gentlemen, this week we are brought to you by our sponsors. Shout out to all of our sponsors. In fact, last night they were voting for The next movie that I will have to watch as we continue to reintegrate me back into society. It's difficult. It's a struggle. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it yet. We watched Step Brothers, and it was a struggle. But I will say, by the way, shout out to Telly Coleman, LTKTrucking.com. By the way, another show sponsor. Sent me a bottle of I believe it was a Yellowstone. I think it's a Yellowstone bourbon. And after about my third Yellowstone bourbon, I laughed at the movie. And to be fair, it's probably the first time I've laughed at a movie since I saw bits and pieces of Old School back in the day. So,
You're a destroyed human being.
I am. I kicked it off at the start of the show that I'm a terrible human being, and it is what it is. But it is something to be talked about. Boys, let's catch this shit on fire and check out this week's burns. Sheila is celebrating Mother's Day like none other. What do you think? She had Red Lobster tonight. Is she at Red Lobster eating all the shrimp? Do you think?
I just think she tastes like a Cheddar Bay biscuit. I'm not sure if she's actually eating it, but whatever.
Definitely will leave you greasy
whatever.
like a cheddar biscuit. That is for sure.
Give me that lobster bib.
You can't, no matter the amount of soap you use, you just can't get that filth off your hands. The pesticide cleanup finished at a 150-acre North Star development. For 3 years, thousands of truckloads of pesticide-contaminated soil wound their way through the Kaiser neighborhoods from a proposed development on Kale Street Northeast to a farm 6 miles away. Now, an environmental cleanup of a 150-acre North Star neighborhood is complete, the Oregon Department of Environmental Quality has determined. Neighbors and government agencies raised alarms when developers proposed the project in 2017. The soil was contaminated with dieldrin, a breakdown product of the insecticide aldrin, which was banned from crop use in 1970. It persists in soils for years and can accumulate up the food chain. The contamination exceeded DEQ's standard for residential areas, but was considered safe for farm use. Opponents said that the plan had potential to spread contaminated dust from the trucks, which had passed 3 schools en route to the farm. They also worried that once at the farm, where it would be used to fill 2 former quarry pits, it could contaminate groundwater and surface water. In response, DEC required the developer to use dust control measures and required the farmer to cover the contaminated soil with 3 feet of clean fill. Nicole Tarter, a neighborhood watch leader who lives near the truck route, said concern died down after the project began. The developer, INE Construction in Wilsonville, asked the Statesman Journal to email questions about the project, but did not answer them. I think new neighbors are unaware, and ones that have been here a while aren't as concerned now that the dust has settled, quite literally. Cleanup construction of the development with 500 homes, plus duplexes and apartments, have been completed in phases. The site is at Kale Street. The developer was allowed to begin building on the eastern portion of the property in 2018 after it excavated and temporarily stockpiled 55,000 cubic yards of contaminated soil on the western part of the site. In 2019, development began on the western part of the site with another 47,000 cubic yards of contaminated soil was added to the stockpile. DEC allowed the developer to use about 25,000 cubic yards of soil with lower contamination levels from the western portion as structural fill in the area where the apartments could be included. So it goes on and on and on. And it was a big deal. This is a massive amount of dirt that was being moved here. And now I'm not familiar with dieldrin or aldrin. Ray, I know this is all in your area of expertise. What the hell are these products?
Okay, dieldrin and aldrin were widely used in the United States up until, I believe, 1970. And that is when dieldrin and aldrin were banned for general use and restricted to use only as a termiticide underneath structures. Because, by the way, here in Hawaii, a common contaminant of soil in residential areas is dieldrin, aldrin, or chloridane. And that is because up until the 1980s, those 3 insecticides were widely used for control of termites. And those are considered forever chemicals because once it's out in the environment, it basically has a half-life of decades, if not a century. So my question is, Yeah, bad. And here's one more little thing to consider. If there's that type of chemistry contained in the soil, there is an issue of plants and crops uptaking that chemical from the soil and then translocating it into its tissues. So I would not suggest, for example, that people make their own vegetable gardens in that neighborhood.
Yeah, I can't imagine. I mean,
I'm just saying. I'm just saying because I still remember, like, even my father telling me, "Yeah, you don't want a vegetable garden around your house. Not here in Hawaii. You don't want that."
DeMay, if this was in Ohio, does this happen in Ohio? I guess I don't know. I don't know. I've never seen anything like this in Tennessee.
there was funny that you mentioned this. So there was a park here that was partially on the site of an old fertilizer plant here in town, and it was the home of a bunch of soccer fields, playgrounds, all that kind of stuff. And then they were doing some other type of environmental impact study for something they were going to build, and found out, holy shit, like there is some horrific stuff on this site. And it ended up that the entire park, about maybe 18 or so acres, completely stripped ray, 4 feet, 5 feet down, all that stuff trucked out, all new fill brought in, line in there, all kinds of stuff. And they started pulling all the houses around the park, and people were sick, and there was histories of illness of people that had left there. It was a bad deal. So the answer is, or do you want to buy a house there? No, I'm going to go ahead and pass.
It's a tough, and this is one of those scenarios, where we turfgrass purists at heart? Yes. Are we turfgrass elitists? Yes. And probably more so just me because I'm a terrible human. But this cannot go on. Like this is a bad thing, and I'm glad it was corrected and the cleanup took place, because just as we can be so positive or pro turfgrass at the same time, we can be sensible human beings. We're assholes, not scumbags. The two largest reservoirs in California are already at critical low levels, and the dry season is just starting. Against the backdrop of a water crisis in the Colorado River Basin, where the country's largest reservoirs are plunging at an alarming rate, California's two largest reservoirs, the Shasta Lake and Lake Oroville, are facing a similar struggle. Years of low rainfall and snowpack and more intense heat waves have fed directly to the state's multi-year unrelenting drought conditions, rapidly draining statewide reservoirs. And according to this week's report from the U.S. Drought Monitor, the two major reservoirs are at critically low levels to the point of the year where they should be the highest. This week, Shasta Lake is only at 40% of its total capacity, the lowest it has ever been at the start of May since record-keeping began in 1977. Meanwhile, further south, Lake Oroville is at 55% of its capacity, which is 70% of where it should be around this time on average. Shasta Lake is the largest reservoir in the state and the cornerstone of California's Central Valley Project, a complex water system made of 19 dams and reservoirs, as well as more than 500 miles of canals stretching from Reddington to the north all the way south to the drought-stricken landscapes of Bakersfield. And it goes on here to talk about how much of a bad thing this is. But, when we're talking about California and the drought that's taking place there's nothing about that is good. It is 100% a bad thing. And the fact that we're kicking off the year right now, right? So where they're relying on a lot of this water replenishment in their reservoirs to come from snow melt, and it's not there. This is not good. I mean, we're at 40% capacity right now. Now, it might explain the article, and I may have missed it, but what is a realistic look for the remainder of this year as far as how many more years at this kind of capacity can we continue to go, or how many months even can we continue to go? Are we down to counting months? Are we counting weeks at this point? It's bad. It's a bad deal.
Yeah, it's bad all the way around. And again, this is where all turfgrass managers, if you just look at that part of it, right, are going to be in extreme duress, and there's reasons why and reasons why not that they should be allowed or able to irrigate, given the assets they're maintaining and things like that. But it's going to get to the point where there ain't a whole lot that they're able to do, and so I don't know. It's discouraging to see this, and especially given the agricultural needs of the state, right, and what they produce. That's a huge critical component of it too. So, not looking great. Definitely a burn.
This is all bad, and climate wise, I can give you all a glimpse or a picture of what's going on in the western half of the United States and the Pacific Ocean, including Hawaii. Can you say a very dry pattern that has taken hold? And when I say pattern, I'm talking multi-year drought. I'm seeing that, a multi-year drought. I mean, I'm also sitting tight too, because other than the last 2 weeks, I have not had very much rain here in Hawaii. Okay, I have not had that much rain. And what happens in Hawaii then translates over to California, because whatever weather systems hit Hawaii tend to move towards California. That's just the climate and the weather.
Well, I certainly hope there's some sort of relief somewhere, because that can affect so much of the rest of the United States that it's truly a bad thing. Our returns this week are thin, but boy, are they quality. Let's hear about it. I'm back. In the running for my favorite article of the year, it can be summarized by one glorious headline here. Naked Middle Georgia man tackled woman off lawnmower before her husband shot him, deputy said. Welcome to America. The Bibb County Sheriff's Office said a man was shot and killed when he attacked a woman seemingly unprovoked and naked. Deputies said the 25-year-old man died from a gunshot wound after he allegedly tackled a 67-year-old woman off a riding lawnmower. It happened Thursday afternoon at Trophy Place near Lazella. Deputies said the woman's 66-year-old husband shot the naked attacker when the husband tried to pull him off his wife, and the suspect attacked the woman again. The woman was hospitalized but is listed in stable condition. The husband had minor injuries and was treated at the scene. Deputies responded around 5 p.m. and found the man naked with a gunshot wound to his chest. Investigators didn't mention any charges related to the incident. Kudos to this 66-year-old man taking care of his 67-year-old lady on Mother's Day. Well, it didn't exactly occur on Mother's Day, but the day before.
Nice shooting,
Mother's Day.
Sir.
You're damn right.
Nice shooting,
You're
sir.
damn right.
Yeah.
Because let me tell you right now, if there was a naked guy that was attacking my wife off the riding lawnmower in the yard,
Yeah, Matt.
Voice of reason. DeMay.
It's unfortunate that this happened, but I think this guy just probably watched the wrong lawn YouTube video and should have tried to apply that PCP to the lawn through a hose and sprayer instead of his own body. So, bleeding out on the lawn was not the way that we intended to have that applied, sir. But
meth.
To each his own.
Meth.
Each his own.
Meth is a heck of a drug, Matt.
I'm thinking some angel dust or maybe some bath salts. I don't know.
I'm sure it's a combination of both. If I had to guess, this guy was willing to consume any and everything, including lead to the chest. What about this week's mailbag? We got some good stuff here.
Mail.
Oh, we do have mail, as a matter of fact. The first one here is from one of our patrons, Peter. Peter said, just got my soil test back today. I got a pH of 8 and low P. Planning on applying sulfur to help lower pH and then using AMS and triple 19 for my primary FERT. Also included co-ops products that I have access to. You're definitely low P. And he's talking about using AMS and triple 19. Yeah, you could get away with a couple apps of triple 19 and then rely on AMS. And elemental sulfur would be your friend. I would also add citric acid to the equation there. And you can go back and watch our Thirsty Thursday episode with Aldo. There's also a great video by Ben the Lawn Guardian where he talked about using it to make some big moves on his pH as well. And I think you're good to go. As far as anything from the co-op here, I looked at it and I don't see anything that they are offering that is going to be better or applicable to your situation beyond what you're already doing. The important thing is that you're doing what you need and not necessarily what you want or what you're being sold. So this 19 poly bag at of a sale price of $27.90. Do the damn thing and grow you some grass. Boys, am I out of line there, or is that sounded pretty dosh gone good?
No, I think you can be pretty successful there. Dropping
Pretty
that pH
reasonable.
down is going to help. I'd say stick with the basics. Don't get yourself too caught up on the, going too hard in the paint, unless you want to on the pH thing, and then see where the chips fall here for next year. Just start working on that P situation, getting your end right. Go from there.
Get your in right, he said. And then our next one is from Frank here. Frank said, I live in Illinois with tall fescue, and I'm looking for some general guidance based on my soil report from Logan Labs. Front and side yard, last application was in November of 2021, was bag rated screaming green. Thanks. And we're taking a look at it here. What we have is we have a decent level of potassium. We are low in sulfur. We are high in phosphorus. And everything else looks to be good. So what I would be doing, where's the pH? Is 7.5. So I would be on an ammonium sulfate program is the only thing I would be applying to your lawn.
Yep. I wouldn't get carried away with any sulfur or anything like that. They got a little bit of be all right. Just stick with the ammonium sulfate.
Yeah, looks good to
keep
me.
it simple.
Pretty simple, pretty cheap program. As a matter of fact, there too. Frank is the old ammonium sulfate. Yeah, I guess if you're urea, it could be a little bit cheaper, but it's cheaper than Screaming Green, that's for sure. And the beauty of it is that you never have to apply Screaming Green ever again. Gentlemen, that is going to wrap up our show today. I want to thank you all for hanging out for the time we did. Thursday we've got Jesse Wood on Thirsty Thursday, and then after Wood, that there is an H in there. And then after that, we're going to be doing a live call-in show. Oh, and off the air, we got to talk about one of our friends, Matix, is moving to America, Tejas, as a matter of fact. And he wants us to take a look at what he's going to be doing down there because he is a Canadian who is getting his first taste of America right into good old Texas. So it should be fun.
Like Crocodile Dundee comes south instead of north. It's going to be fucking weird.
Straight to Texas.
Don't
mess
make him go to
with
the
Texas.
Outback first thing. None of those cheddar bay biscuits.
No.
All right.
Grease doesn't leave your hands, DeMay.
Yeah. Natex tells me that the first thing he's going to do when he gets to Texas is get his gun permit.
Yeah, just like a good American there, isn't he? When in doubt, shoot it out.
Sheila, you're looking a little congealed. I'm getting randy.
Yeah, well, that's because the guy tackled her off a mower earlier this week, and her boyfriend wasn't there to shoot the perpetrator. All right, we're gonna go let our patrons choose the title of this week's episode. We'll catch y'all on Thursday.